Are you hearing us, Linda?
Oh, Tom's coming. I questioned if Tom was gonna be here, and I know Scott.
Something.
All right, are
He
you
just let
hearing
me
us?
know. So, I mean, but if we don't have to have a forum, I say let's drop it. Yeah.
Okay, Linda, can you hear us?
Cause I gotta get back to work.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Okay, I just texted you asking if we could have a public hearing without a quorum, but, Megan called her publisher and said that we can hold a public hearing, so we're not voting on anything. So I just wanted to get your thought on
I
that.
mean, you can get some shell. I mean, I don't like to go.
Okay.
The kingdoms, they probably had.
You hear what I was asking?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we were wondering if we had to have a quorum for a public, just for the public hearing, since something's being voted on. Because Scott's not gonna be able to make it tonight, and Tom's not here yet. But Megan said she talked to her publisher, and they think that you can still have a public hearing without the quorum.
I think that's correct.
Okay. All right, then give Tom just a little bit of time. I mean, texting. Nope, there he is walking in now. We'll have a quorum.
So this, some of this is crazy, because you won't.
Sorry. I'll mute. Hey, Mike. There's no audio.
Thank you.
Okay,
Is that better?
yes.
Okay, so we just called the meeting to order, voted to approve the agenda, and it was unanimous. Do you need to introduce the military topic before we have to start the public hearing?
I can. So the rollback rate for, we have to figure two rollback rates, one for Habersham County and one for Raven County. We had reassessments of real property in both. In Habersham County, there was reassessments of $325,900. Other changes to the taxable digest of $3,354,000, and the total real property digest of $18,534,000. The rollback rate for Habersham County would be 5.562. The previous rate for last year was 5.663, so it would roll back to 5.562. For Raven County, the reassessments for $787,000. Other changes to the digest of $2,731,813, and a total digest for real property of $14,065,000. The rollback rate calculated for Raven County would be 5.337. Since we've been told we can only adopt one millage rate to not have a tax increase, we would have to go all the way back to the 5.337 for it not to be a tax increase. So based on the budget that was adopted by council back in June, the amount needed, if you remember, we had I had based it on last year's digest. It looked like it was going to be 7 mills. It didn't come in quite that high, so we are at 6.62 mills to meet the projected revenues that we needed to balance the budget.
Okay, so tonight, what I believe we've done is the council has proposed going ahead and raising the millage rate to 6.62. And so tonight is the public hearing on the first of 3 public hearings on that tax increase before we adopt it. So I'll go ahead and we'll open the floor for those that are in favor, that want to speak in favor of the millage rate increase. And we'll give 2 minutes apiece tonight. And we'll begin. Let me get my stopwatch started. Make sure that everybody voted. All right, and I'll go ahead and open the floor for those who would like to speak in favor of the millage rate increase.
Well, I'll go ahead and speak. I mean, nobody likes to see taxes raised. Nobody likes to spend more money. I guess I would have, so the reason why we have to do it is because otherwise the budget wouldn't balance.
Correct.
And I assume y'all have looked at ways to balance it by cutting out expenses. I mean, obviously, so since it's been. Well, if it's what we need to do, we need to do. And we want to stay solvent. I think along with it, though, comes fiscal responsibility. You know, there's certainly the option of lowering the back. Once we get ahead of it, that involved. Sounds like that if we're under budget.
All right. Are there any more, anybody online want to speak in favor? One other person besides Linda on the Zoom.
I'm not speaking in favor or speaking against, I just have a couple of questions. Is that allowed or not?
Typically not, but I don't, y'all have a problem?
I'm the
So,
same, I'm in neutral, I don't know what.
okay,
I'm assuming that you did factor in the increase in the values of property when you did the budget, because all the values went up, but you still needed more revenue at that point.
actually, yeah, that's what Linda was saying earlier, is that we had initially projected that we'd have to do a 7.3
Seven. The 7.
7 point, okay, so we go to the 7 millage, but because the values came in higher than expected, we only need to go to 6.62 now. So it's not as much of an increase as we were expecting on the millage rate.
So
So,
you factored in the additional revenue from the, what do you call it, where the speed limit is being.
well,
Right, electronically.
yeah, that's hard to factor in because all that money has to go to public safety only. So it can't be used for other budgetary items. So, and we don't know what that's gonna be just yet. So this, the first few weeks it's been online and we're just in the, warning phase right now. Trying,
Right.
and it's getting people's attention. I've had a couple of people ask about it because they've gotten their warning in the mail. So,
One or two more questions. Do we know how much more or less we're getting from Georgia Power every year since they pretty much donated a lot of their land and given it to DNR, et cetera? I know their taxes are, I know the state, I think, does their taxes, property taxes, so.
I don't think we'll know that until what, September, August? Well, September. It's already the end of August. When do we normally get those?
Yeah, it's normally in September.
So you just use what they paid last year, is that what you do in the budget?
When we're setting the millage rate, yes. Well, not what they paid last year, but what the value, what they were assessed at.
Right, but and how has that compared to like the prior year? Has it been up or down?
Last year was up from the previous year for Georgia Power.
So hopefully it'll be up this year, so.
Yeah, I have no way to know until their appeal period is for some reason different than everybody else's.
So they just tell us what it is, pretty much.
Yeah. The state will send us something, but it's based on some formula that Georgia Power gets to, I think they get to control some of that. So,
The assessor's office will send it to us, but it's not usually until September. It's after I bill everybody else's. 'Cause I have to hold those back and wait until we get those final numbers.
So we're in the red, so that's why we get a raise. What's the main issue that we're going through that makes us go in the hole? Is it the water? Us having to do so much with that to bring it up to speed? What exactly has made us go in the
well, we're not in the hole yet.
But I know we
Linda,
do a lot with the water, and
Yeah.
that's very, very expensive what we've done. And so I was wondering, because I know at the last minute we talked about being connected to Generous, checking to see if it'd be cheaper to go with them instead of maybe spending all the money on the tanks. But is the water situation one of the main reasons why we made?
There is a $24,000 transfer from the general fund to the water fund in the budget this year that was not in the budget last year. Last year, water fund used some of its reserves to balance. It doesn't have that to do again. So it's gonna have to be, helped by the general fund. So that is a big chunk of it. Of course, we've got, increased expenses across the board, just like everybody else does. But, there were no changes in salaries. Insurance always goes up. We had to get an additional policy, insurance policy for some of our zoning that we did not have before. Of course, we have increased legal fees. We had to increase what we're paying for our right-of-way maintenance, and some of our tree trimming. And I think and then we had decreased fines over the last few years, so we had to factor some of that in. We did increase it by 25,000 over what we collected for this past year, with thoughts of, having the speed detection, camera that, and, hopefully just increased revenues without COVID being, such a factor in, what some of our fine revenues had gone, because it had decreased substantially. You don't really like to budget based on fine revenue, but we do factor in some of that revenue, of course, because we know, we'll have some of it anyway. But that's the biggest things. Of course, fuel, and transfer of water, attorney fees, zoning insurance, right-of-way maintenance. Those were some of our biggest contributing factors.
one of the issues that every local government faces is that the state mandates that we advertise a tax increase, even if we leave the millage rate alone and values on property go up. So for the past 4 years, I believe, 3 or 4 years, we've actually been rolling our millage rate back. We've been at 6 mills for over 20 years. And then we're rolling it back. So for the past 4 years, we were working on 2018 level of income to the town, but costs of living was continuing to go up. So we're not in a hole, but we don't want to go in a hole. And that's why we're saying, yeah, we need to go ahead and bump this up a little bit. And like Mary Beth was saying, so that 0.62 above what we'd normally be at, maybe depending on how some things happen this year, we may find out that we can drop that back down next year. But we just need to go.
That never happens.
No. That's
That's crazy.
that's about a 17% increase. in the
Right.
millage.
Yeah.
So I mean, you haven't had to change the millage rate because property values have been going up. So I mean,
Well, but we've dropped it
That's
for the
opposite.
past 4 years.
It's opposite. The millage rate rolled back
right.
when values go up.
So we want,
We rolled it back for 4 years.
What's the total amount of funds the town has in the bank?
We don't have a copy of the budget here. We had budget hearings, didn't we?
yeah, we had a budget hearing and everything back in May.
Well, that wouldn't have anything to do with the budget, really. I mean, that's just what does the town have total funds in the bank? Okay, okay.
In the general fund, we've got, roughly $416,000 and another $170,000 in CDs. For water fund, we've got $19,000 and a CD of $26,000. not including, SPOS and, things that those are our accessible funds for non-capital.
So increase in the millage rate equated to how much additional funds?
Yeah, what are we short on? That's right.
How much do we have?
She just filled it in.
The increasing net taxes are approximately 71,000.
Okay,
So we're short 71.
so we have quite a bit in the back. 170 of a certificate of deposit.
All right. Anything else? Terry?
Yeah, I just had a few questions. Obviously, y'all don't want to raise the rent unless you want to bring your citizen. But if I'm hearing the town correctly, we're short roughly $71,000, give or take. So we have reserves. The reason you have reserves are for rainy days like this. And secondly, the radar system that's coming in, please correct me while I'm wrong. Any funds that come into that do stay in public safety. How much do we have in our budget in public safety for this coming year? Because then it's about shifting. I know we had to do that all the time when we're on that side. Is shifting.
I mean, for the general fund and police, there's 125,425 and fire 32,720.
Which is an unknown. I understand fully what I'm proposing here. So, but there would be at least some funds that we could possibly have.
The budget's already been passed,
Correct.
so we're not gonna go back and change our budget. We're talking about having to increase the millage rate to meet that budget, because we've already approved the budget.
Understood. And we always amend the budget, but so we're short $71,000 and how do we make that up?
Right. And then the other problem,
Without raising.
yeah, the other problem is that, if you look at the line item for our police department, their fines and forfeitures pretty much cover their operating expense. So there's really not a whole lot of general fund money going into the police department, because they practically cover what they use, except we had a shortfall last year. Speeds on camera might make that up. But it's a lot of it is that we just had so many other increases. We are looking at what we're gonna do about the water system, and there we may have a solution.
What
we
is
may not.
that? What is the-
We met with Demers, they seem to be at least interested in exploring the option of taking our water system over. And then we wouldn't have that expense on the town, because they would take care of all of it if we come to the right kind of arrangement. So
Would that be cheaper in the long run?
for the town, definitely, but
Okay,
we gotta see,
yeah, with,
first of all, we gotta come to an agreement. We don't know what that's gonna happen yet. And next week, we don't know what that's gonna do to the residential rate in town. It may go up, it may go down. We have to see, and then we have to make a decision. The council has to make a decision. If Demers takes it over and everybody's water rate's gonna go up to like $50 a month to cover that cost, then we may not wanna go that way. Even
especially
though,
if it's that have too much on the mountain.
yeah. So,
Did you consider using some of the money out of that certificate of deposits? Or why not?
we do use that, we have that money in reserve. That at the end of the year, there's always something we have to amend our budget for. How much was our amendment this year, Linda?
Oh. Let's see, we amended it by $95,000 in the general fund.
So $95,000 that we, at the end of the year, after we planned ahead and tried to make sure we could make ends meet, we still had a shortfall at the end of the year. And that's what we like to hold on to that other money in the bank for, is for those, that's the rainy day. What we need to do is make sure we cover what we know we need to do, and then hold the money back to, you know, to hit those projects that come out of nowhere. So. All right,
Both counties are taking an increase, is my understanding, to the consumer.
yeah, both counties are going up.
So this
By
would
one
be an
mil?
additional. And the cheese plus that's through.
I say, I'm not a nay or a yay. I want whatever we have to do. Yeah.
All right, so, think we've answered enough questions, or if y'all have some more? If not,
I
we'll,
just like to comment, this is a comment, that I tried diligently trying to understand the budget. And it's very detailed, but usually with a budget, you have a balance sheet, source and user, and then you have what's in, I couldn't find what the true amount spent and what was in the red. I never found that. I'm just saying, it's very detailed. But I just think it would help all of us if we can understand, or maybe other people can, but
all right, let's, go ahead and move on. I think I'm assuming we've heard from everybody that wants to speak in favor of the increase, and, we'll go ahead and move on to those that want to speak in opposition.
Okay, I want to go on record. I was not speaking in favor. I was asking questions. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
The same,
Yes.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I want those reserves looked at.
So,
Hello?
Yes,
it's the
Marty.
option if the mill rate is not increased, what's the option?
we don't have a balanced budget. And we're in violation of state law. So
Well, we have money in reserve, we could use.
we could, but we've already approved our budget.
You amend.
We can amend, but this is, okay, so this part of the conversation really should have been happening back in May. When we were talking about the budget and brought the budget up and had our public hearings. We had at least two public hearings. So you come in and you, that's when to have these discussions. Then we're here, and in those meetings, we said, we will have to plan for a millage rate increase if we adopt this budget. So we were even saying it back then, that we would have to increase. So really the time to be talking about trying to make these changes was 2 months ago. So right now, I really want to focus us back on to the millage rate increase and get public comment, which we're supposed to do, we'll have
Hello?
2 more of those. And then we want to move on and look at our sign ordinance. So, yeah, Marty, go ahead. Mine, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to make 2 comments. The percentage increase that we're looking at is about 17% increase from the old millage rate to the new proposed millage rate. You're really, between you and the county, you guys are really making a hard for us to be able to accept to stay. Because people who are up here retired on a fixed income, having that type of rate increase is very difficult. So you're just helping me trying to make a decision if we can continue here or not. Now, the other comment is, as far as you're maybe getting any additional revenue, haven't you had more people move into the city and build recently, which would help increase some of your revenue? Have you accounted for that? That's it. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, Linda, can you?
Sure. I mean, the tax assessors for the county, when they pick up any new construction, they add that into the digest. And that's the column, other additions to the digest on your rollback sheet. There's reassessments and then there's other changes to the digest. So yes, those are factored in.
Okay, well, I guess my comment with bottom line would be, you're making it challenging for me to want to stay here or be able to afford to be able to stay here. I could understand that we rolled it back and now we're having to increase it moving forward. I understand, I'm not trying to challenge the budget, but usually there are some ways you can try to adjust things, even moving forward with a set budget in the past. So I would personally be more happy if the increase was a little lower, maybe around a 10% number. So you're asking for public comments. I'm just trying to tell you that it's a high increase for us to be able to accept and to keep going. So that's my comment. Thank you.
About how much money would it be adding to our, does anybody know?
60% increase, plus you've already got an increase in the house rate now. So, depends on the value of your home. And your pocket. I think I calculated it if there's $100,000 assessed value, I think it equated to right under $1,000. So, but that's assessed value.
Yeah.
So not fair market value.
Which you only pay on 40% of the
Right.
assessed value. So the increase,
Yeah.
I don't think, what was the,
Based on a $200,000 fair market value is $76.56, the increase.
How much?
$76?
Six, I thought you said six. That could be that good.
$76 increase on a $200,000 home.
Because your
So
assessed value is only 80,000.
The 40% of it.
Yeah, it's only 80,000.
right, correct.
Okay.
All right, any more in opposition? All right, I'll go ahead and close out the public hearing for the first public hearing for the millage rate increase. And let's go ahead and move on to our working through our sign ordinance. I don't know if y'all have read through the ordinance or not. Any thoughts? I have a couple that I'd like to introduce. And actually, I guess, get Linda's input as well. One of the things I jotted down was that right now we have two ordinances. We have one in zoning and one in our regular ordinance category. The one in our regular ordinance category, we're gonna do away with after we get this one wrapped up and put together. But some of the differences were that in the zoning, we only allowed 50 square feet for a sign, whereas in the regular ordinance, we allowed 100 square feet. And that's kind of been the standard in this. So in the recommendation from planning and zoning, they wanted to make it a 50 square foot limit on signs. And I believe we ought to increase that back, put that at 100 square feet, because we'll end up with variance requests all over the place. And because we've been allowing 100 square feet for years and years. And then I wanted to talk about redefining from animated signs, the definition, to making that what would be referred to as electronic message centers. Because based on that, and I don't think we need to ban them, the school already has one. And so instead of banning those, I think we need to regulate them, and we can regulate them based on the a group called the IDA. And I can't remember what that stands for off the top of my head. But they have a guidance for electronic message centers that talk about how to classify, turn them off certain times of day or certain times of night, how many candle power, Kelvin, temperature, all that stuff. They get into all that. And then I wanted to look at adding in that all external lighting needs to be downward facing. So that we're not just adding to the light pollution around here, because we've got more than enough light pollution, so I want to see if we can kind of rein that in a little bit. But I think there should be some way to also allow for, if we start talking about turning lights off between 9 and 6 or whatever, decision is, we get into that, we may need to also consider having some sort of exception for like, hotels or overnight accommodations that accept guests late into the evening. And if we ever had like a 24-hour service station, we need to figure out something about lighting for their signs, because you don't want customers bypassing those signs at all. So just some ideas I came up with, some thoughts, and wanted to see what you guys, if y'all had any other ideas. We're not adopting this tonight. We don't even need to necessarily send it to Warren. If y'all want to work on it some more, we definitely can, but this is our first opportunity to kind of get this moving again. Most of it seemed all right. It seemed pretty reasonable, but go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, there was quite a bit of discussion about billboard signs at the P and Z level. In the draft, the definitions actually don't match what they ended up changing it to, so that I had to fix one or the other of that. And the definitions, it's 200 square feet, and then they changed it on page 6 to 250 square feet. So we'll need to fix one of those numbers, but I saw, and there's a few other minor references to paragraphs and that kind of thing that I'll fix, that I've picked up on since then. But one thing I wanted to ask, because this is what I deal with, of course, is when someone on page 4, section B4, specifically on the application for a sign permit, it's requiring an accurate scale drawing of the plans, the specs, the method of construction, the attachment to the building or the ground for the sign, a scale drawing of the site showing driveway structures and any other limiting site features. I just want to point out, if we put that in there, then that's what I have to require. So if we want to allow something more casual, then we need to better state, what it is that they have to produce, because otherwise, a scalable drawing, someone's going to have to, most people give it to me on a napkin pretty much. So we just need to figure out, to what extent, are we going to require that? If that's what you want to do, then that's fine. We can leave it in there, but then that's what I'm going to require them to bring me if they want to sign. And then the only other thing I had a question on, because it comes up quite a bit, is the incidental use signs. We don't really define those as being the kind of incidental signs that we see so many of especially on the highway. So I don't know if that needs more work, if we're just gonna let DOT deal with those, but I mean, all the what you would probably consider a temporary sign that basically stay out all the time, and the flags, banner type signs that I know the restaurants are, trying to attract attention, and that's fine as long as we want to allow that. But we don't really have anything in this ordinance that says yes or no. That's all I have.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's something we could come up with for these little temporary signs. Wonder if I don't know if we want to just continue to ban those, Or maybe come up with a policy where they can only be up during business hours, they have to be taken down in the evenings.
So I don't know if we can come up with a policy that allows signing on right of way, period.
Okay.
I mean, it's not our right of way.
Well, no, I
Within,
mean,
within our right of way.
within our right of way,
Yeah,
yeah,
but most
as far
of
as
it's up on
DOT,
DOT right away.
that's all DOT, yeah.
Shouldn't officiate that. If they do it, then so be it. But
If they get permission from DOT, that's outside.
DOT
our-
doesn't allow it, but yeah.
So,
But I don't know if we need to try to regulate anything on the state right of way.
no,
On our right of way, if you want, that's fine, but what we're all discussing is the state right of way, as far as temporary signs.
but we have a few temporary signs that are around on city right of ways,
Okay.
but,
And then some of those are on their property aren't in, may not be in the right of way at all. They may be, further back than that, but we haven't.
you're supposed to take them down within 2 days of the event that they're advertising, but you're
Well, the way-
advertising every
Yeah,
day.
the way they say it, it says no other sign shall be permitted within the right of way of any street or road or right of way. Should be the city street. It's not.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
Just leave the DOT out.
okay. Where is that one?
It's on incidental signs on A. It's not a big deal, If you're gonna change it. Yeah, it's clear DOT.
What page is that?
511. 1A. Getting into this town, they were getting into the state, I'm trying to get.
I'm wondering if we,
That really need to be in our ordinance.
do we have authority over county roads in the town and their right of way?
For signs,
Yeah, for signs and everything. We got like two little villages.
they're in the city, well, I don't know, that's a good question. Maybe that's something, no, it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. But see, Georgia 15 would be a state road. Or Georgia, the loop itself would be a state road. Okay, we need to look into this, so we want to get, of course, Warren, before this ever goes, gets.
Yeah,
down,
he'll-
Warren's gonna get
he'll
hurt,
change on it.
so. Yeah, mostly we're wanting to regulate signs on the private property itself. So. We're really not gonna get into signs in the right of way, even on the city streets too much. Okay. All right. One other thing that was brought up was that on the billboards, I believe they say they can't exceed. Cannot exceed 10 feet in height or 25 feet in length.
That's 250 square feet.
That's 250 square feet, and let's see. So I guess the question is that the sign itself, and is there a limitation on how tall the overall sign should be? What should be allowed? I don't know enough about billboards to. Oh, here we go. No billboard sign shall be erected to a height in excess of 20 feet. This on page 711. 7 of 11, number 7. So 20 feet seems pretty short to me for a billboard. Y'all, and then if you have if it's 10 feet high, it can't be more than 20, it can only be 10 feet off the ground.
Do we even have any billboards on state route, going through town?
not traditional billboards. There's one sign, I believe, on, the Irvin's property over by Willender Point.
I mean, we don't have any of the big overhang roads. I can't,
Yeah, I don't think I don't recall having any. of
just keep it that way.
them. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Mayor, I attend a lot of the sign meetings, the P and Z meetings. That was the big discussion why they came up with a proposal I have in front of you. Is to prevent all the big billboards coming into the town.
Yeah,
The
if they
20 foot height.
20 foot, that'll create that situation.
Gotcha.
That they spent a lot of time on
Yeah,
that discussion.
Okay,
Okay, that makes,
meetings.
that makes sense.
I get it now. And there was something I wanted to get into. I can't remember. I'll have to go back to my notes and look. I want to deal with the, if we go ahead and bump the overall sign size back up to 100 feet. Want to be careful about the grandfathering and signs becoming non-conforming because we have existing signs. I don't know that they're bad signs, so I don't want to do something that affects those. And like the urban sign, we don't want to do something where if it fell out of compliance, they wouldn't be able to put it back up because it's not a bad sign. It's not a bad placement. It's been there for I don't know how many years. I'm just cautious that this could have a negative effect if something happened to an existing sign now. Since I don't know that we have any that are in bad, other than a bad state of repair, their location is something that we wouldn't. I just don't know how many signs we've caught in another one. Catch something by accident.
And where is the grandfather clause at?
Grandfather's on page 10, section 2813. So they grandfather them in, but if they're not conforming, but I don't know, I guess I need to do a little more research to see what we can do. It's like I don't think there's any signage still up on Indian Springs. I don't think there's any signage up on whatever that other one is next to the point. So. It's Y 98. Y 98.
I was saying it's the grandfather clause is July 9th, 1998.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
That's great. Some time to read this.
Yeah. So what I might do is get with Linda, make a few changes. And then get that out to you guys and let y'all look back over it one more time. Redline anything else that's being too much. Because Linda's gonna have to police or one of the big changes is that signs won't come to the council for approval anymore. They'll just be approved directly by the zoning administrator. And so she's gonna, I'm sure she wants to make sure that we've got very clear language, so she knows how to handle that. I know that's one of our biggest headaches is questioning whether you can do this or that. Because you don't know the wording, don't know what the intent was, so. All right. You had a long day. Well, if there's nothing else, it's a work session. I'm waiting on the signs too. So, got anything else?
Well, I just had a question or a thought about the grandfather clause. And so I'm assuming that if the sign gets grandfathered in, if the business changes or if the sign. changes.
The other,
I'm just saying the way I read,
the other
the way I just read it, it seems like it was saying the owner.
See, I wouldn't.
But just because it did some changes, if the sign. If the structure doesn't change, just the wording and all that, why, I mean, it seemed like to me it would still be grandfathered.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to look back at those two sections about grandfathering and then what makes something non-compliant, because I think the wording was.
Oh, yeah, it says lease or leasee or.
Because like 1882, if they were to move out
Right,
and someone wanted to use that sign as paint over it,
right.
if it wasn't conforming to this, then that whole thing would have to go away. And that's what I don't want. I don't want that to have to happen. And so we've got several things like that in there. We don't really want this to have an adverse effect by accident.
And you're correct, Mary Beth, it is the owner, but then they also say it's a lease or leasee, the user of property served, so you're right. If the business does switch or lease switches, I should say, for the use of the property, then yeah, the sign has to come in performance.
I can tell you where we got that, because we got sign ordinance from Cleveland, I know.
Yeah.
And we consolidated the ones we have to see which one would fit better in a small town like
Right.
this. And that's where we came up with it.
Yeah, most of this, I'd say 90 to 95% of it's great. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with
And we
it.
jumped on it. It's so long, I can't remember.
But
It seems like the grandfather, oh, I don't want to say, I'm not sure. I don't.
yeah, but it's like I say earlier, we want to work this out because of the uniqueness of our town. We want to make sure that some things are being protected, like the sign for 1880 or for Tallulah Adventure. Thank you.
Bill George Powell.
Yeah, for Tallulah Adventure and for 1882. Those signs contain elements that are really, I think most people consider a historic nature. And don't want to do something to damage that.
We talked about 1892 and that was just coming up.
Yeah.
So maybe you put like those, the monument signs would be continued.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's definitely something we'll
What is
to look at.
like monuments?
Well, as those signs are now, do they not conform with this proposed sign ordinance?
I'm not sure.
You know, Linda?
I'm sure probably some of them do not. Especially if we don't go to the 100 square feet. I know they don't.
Yeah, that'd be the big thing. We went to 50 feet, like it's been suggested, that would end up being a problem for quite a few. And 100 people, 96 square feet is two sheets of plywood together, I think.
48,
Yeah, so that'd be so it's not a very big sign when you're driving on a 4-lane highway. Needing to see. In fact, there are a lot of people that are complaining about Wander and
it's too small.
Tallulah Adventure. Their sign's too small. You
It
can't
is
tell
it is too
what's
small.
going on.
But not the footprint of it.
Footprints.
Yeah,
How
the
they chose to,
Correct.
the way
how they
they chose to do it.
chose to address this.
Yeah,
Right.
because I was driving that, I'm like,
And the
you
footprint,
can't see it.
go back to the
They
monument.
just use that whole.
Right.
It would have been better for them.
But the way the wording is in the ordinance, your whole sign the whole face of the sign counts, including your trim, your, you know, everything except for the supports. So, you know, that,
Definitely
kind
the
of
monument signs, sorry, Linda,
go ahead.
definitely the monument signs, looks like all this needs to be bumped up to at least 100 square feet. Now, we can do some measuring to figure that out, but I was going off this. Why is it that they dictate it based on an acre parcel or a 3 acre plus parcel? I'm sorry, I wasn't at the
Yeah.
meetings, just ask.
Yeah,
Does anybody know why that is?
kind of skimmed
I'm
over
sure we
that.
probably got that because it was in it. I can't get
Okay.
it clear exactly.
Because on business parcel, I mean, an acre is a good size business parcel. It's not a real issue there with a bigger sign. Okay, I was just curious. I didn't know why that was there. Okay. I'm sure I can Google it. For that reason. Let me see. You see what I'm saying on those?
On the station signs?
On both the monument and the stand. Why an acre or 3 acres? Linda, do you know?
No, I don't really know, other than, I guess they thought the bigger the acreage, the bigger the sign, but, you know, chances are you may not have more street frontage either way, but,
Yeah, then you should base it off street frontage instead of.
right, that would make more sense, but
Okay, we'll tweak it and come up with our recommendations, and then who do we give it back to the zone?
Well, that'll be up to y'all. We can, once we come up with something, we can hold a public hearing. And then as a result of that public hearing, we can either vote to send all that back. Or we can actually bring it up in a council meeting after we do and see if we want to send it back, if we want to accept the changes that are there. So one of the other things I did want to bring up is that they have, okay, 28 section 28-9, letter A. It says no freestanding sign may be located within 30 feet of the intersection of street right of way lines extended. What I'm worried about with that is, is that, Linda, do you think that's just addressing, intersections? Or not, or is it, could someone interpret that to also say that it can't be within 30 feet of the right of way, period? Which would then also adversely affect, quite a few existing signs. If some of them right up against the right of way.
yeah, I think it's for intersections, but, you know,
So
that's still, I mean, those are non-residential districts, so you're talking about your commercial areas, so that's, I don't know that we have any current signs that are 30 feet off of the right of way. So.
Right. So we'll need to clean that language up and make it where it's clearly just within, it's only addressing intersections.
It's only addressing intersections.
So,
Well, that's what it says, intersections. You wouldn't read it any different, would you?
well, it says. Of the intersection of the street right of way.
Intersection,
It said,
oh, intersection of 2 street right of ways. That's what it's trying to say.
yeah, so maybe we just need to say two.
So it's always gonna be an intersection.
Yeah. All right, that's, that's one of my concerns, anything.
Now I'm with you, 30
Increases
foot back,
setbacks.
it's pretty good setback. I don't know any situations we have, just here.
Yeah, I don't
Possibly.
think of any, 1882, that's gotta be 30 feet from that intersection. Even though it's right on the right of, really close to the right of way.
Well, this says 30 feet from the right of way.
Be from the intersection of street right of way, so you'd have to have 2 right of ways intersecting, so it's 30 foot from that point.
Yeah, so you can't do it in a corner.
Right, so they don't want you putting it in a corner, but you can be 30 foot up the road and put it in 30 foot up this side of the road.
Yeah.
Which can't be there.
No, then, yeah.
Yeah, where that is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I understand it.
That makes sense. We just
Yeah.
need to. Just make sure we get that clear. when the ordinance is finalized.
It's pretty clear, but it's just the way you read it. You gotta think about it. It's two intersections.
Yes.
30 foot back from the intersection, two right. This is the point. They don't want it in the corner.
Right.
I know. Okay.
Okay, no,
Good luck
I'm
trying to
with
explain it better.
you. I'm with you.
I don't know much better way to explain it.
Yeah. That was, okay,
And I did look at the definition of billboard wrong, so the definition says it would exceed 200 square feet, and then the regulations for billboards, it shall not exceed 250, so I guess anything between 200 and 250 is a billboard.
That makes sense.
okay. Why was it a workshop? Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Thanks y'all for you guys and the P and Z for working on it. and heavy lift.
Well, the heavy lifting's yet to come. We've got to get the tree ordinance worked up at some point. So. And that was gonna be a.
And also congrats to Tommy's barbecue team. I saw that.
Thanks.
That's awesome. You won stage or something?
Third year in a row.
That's awesome. Well, you explain what it is. Awesome.
Now I'm talking to meeting.
Now, yeah,
Well,
well, let's, before we get into that, why don't we go ahead and adjourn the meeting and get a motion to adjourn. Joey makes the motion. Tom seconds, all in favor, unanimous. So I'm sure Linda has stuff she wants to go do. And she might want to talk barbecue.
Let's talk barbecue.
it's in
The man who's.
in the paper today?
Is it Monty?
No,
I saw
Yeah.
it have a chair now.
Yeah, Monty.
What's the last name?
Axon, AXON.
How do you spell Monty?
MONDY.
Hi, guys.
So,
AXON.
Megan.
when I was a head
Never
coach,
mind. Sorry, I thought she was.
Kim Popham, the principal came to my room, she says, you don't sponsor any clubs. I go, but, she was talking about me. I go, okay, barbecue club. Many times, Toledo Falls had 200 students, 100 signed up. I thought they just thought they were gonna eat or something. So we had our first meeting, I said, what do you want to do? They said, well, we roll on, I'm like, okay. Bowl, what I want to do. And one of them said, I want to compete. So I went out to competition class. We went to one competition, it's actually the big apple festival. Big Apple.
Awesome.
And then that was in 2018, and the next year. was 2020, the whole one from Georgia, the point standing is George Martin Championship. We look at it team of the year, and then we won that year, and we won.
Yeah, I'm not real sure what the next actual stuff. is.
So I said, we won the world championships. We won the world junior championship, and we get those schools. Now we're gonna go